Today's Vermont is a great success story. It is the story of a rural state which remains one of the most beautiful and naturally preserved areas in the country. This success is still being worked. It is an ongoing process, which began when the first settlers came to tame the wilderness of the Green Mountains. Like the state it founded, the town of Windsor's story is also one of success. It is a story filled with great achievements and economic boom, balanced by struggle and depression. Windsor, like so many Vermont towns, continues to be challenged by the forces of change in society and economy. The town faces a myriad of difficulties in the constant endeavor to grow and develop. Citizens face and overcome many obstacles, which threaten to undo the stability and tradition they work so hard to preserve. Windsor was founded in 1761 during the turbulent years of the French and Indian Wars, when the American colonies were expanding their borders to satisfy the need of an ever-growing population. During the American Revolution, Windsor achieved great renown as the birthplace of Vermont, when Vermonters, in their effort to prevent Vermont becoming part of New York State, gathered at Eliza West Tavern in Windsor to create a new republic on July the 8th, 1777. The new Republic of Vermont endured for 14 years, with Windsor as its capital, until it became the 14th state to join the Union in 1791. Throughout the following 2 centuries, the town grew to become a grand emporium of commerce and wealth. It was clear early on that Windsor would be a working town. Its geographic location on the banks of the Connecticut River, with access to many brooks and streams, allowed the town to harness water power and create many businesses and industries. Grist mills, sawmills, and woolen mills thrived. Windsor gave birth to a wealth of creativity, with local inventors creating and patenting numerous inventions. It was the Robbins and Lawrence Armory and Machine Shop in Windsor that introduced the ability to mass-produce interchangeable parts to the world. The town continued to prosper well into the 20th century. The Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company and Combe Blanchard provided manufactured goods which were exported nationwide and around the world. The companies were the backbone for economic stability and employed nearly 2/3 of the town's workforce. But change inevitably came as the great industries of the Northeast fell into decline, and Windsor would change forever. The blue-collar working identity of the town, the secure and long-term employment of its workforce, which resulted in the town's prosperity and growth, was no more.
Windsor is a town with a great deal of potential.
The natural beauty of the area, the history of the area, the sense of being isolated when you want to be and yet have all the amenities and culture within a driving distance when you want that. It's a very special way of life. The friendliness of the people, the pace. I think we've got, 2 traffic lights here in Windsor.
One of the things I think is really unique about the town is that it has 2 ponds right in the middle of downtown. You don't see that situation, that the whole town is the river, Main Street, the downtown, great little residential neighborhood areas, and then the 2 ponds, and then it turns into Scuttney Mountain and all of that.
I like the small town atmosphere. I mean, you can walk down these streets anytime and run into people and talk or wave as you go by.
A community that welcomes all. I don't see that there's any sort of hierarchy of position in Windsor that's based on wealth or position. That most everybody knows each other, and they all get along pretty well, and that I think it's just a great community.
And the Windsor people are very, very giving.
Windsor's a real town, a real Vermont working community class town.
People are people here.
When I think of a Windsorite, I think of a typical Vermonter, somebody that makes the most out of their opportunities and with the resources at hand.
The people here are among the nicest and the best to be around.
Windsor is a place with roots. People are connected to each other as well as the land.
I wanted my children to have that connection. I wanted them to feel connected.
It seemed to me to be the best place to raise my kids.
The lakes, the rivers, our park here, our mountain. We've got everything here in Windsor except probably money.
I fear for the future of this town.
Probably the most I dislike is the way taxes are going. They're running people out of town. I know a lot of, even my own son couldn't find a affordable house in Windsor, and he moved to Claremont.
The general population, because it is relatively depressed with relatively low income, is terribly concerned about the tax rate in this town.
And we run vertically, and we have the river bounding us on the east. We have the interstate cutting through us. We have the Falco electric lines cutting through us. We have the interstate cutting through us, all vertically. And the fact that the state then owns 1/3 of what is left, that's got us by the.
And now they just want to continue to push our budget to more and more, and we can't afford it because there's not enough landowners and house owners paying the bill.
On one hand, we see ourselves as a tight community, but on the other hand, we're constantly trying to figure out how to get out of the economic difficulties we're in, and we often turn in and quarrel amongst ourselves in that process.
I dislike the political bickering. I think it's bad for Windsor's image.
We've had a lot of internal troubles that we just seem to be treading water and never progressing out.
One thing I've noticed about the people who make decisions in town is that they're so afraid of making a bad one that they end up making no decision, which in the end is far worse.
I think one of the big problems Windsor has is a mindset. It has a local reputation of being a prison town, of being a town that has had its major industries wiped out from underneath it. It has been a depressed community for at least 10, 15, maybe 20 years. There's a large segment of the old-timers here who would love to have it return to those days of yesteryear. That's simply not going to happen.
Some of the local media has not been friendly to Windsor for whatever reason.
I think we're finally getting the respect that we deserve. I think that for years and years and years it was a real tough situation. I think we had a bad PR situation, and our surrounding towns thought that we were less than they were.
It's easy for people to be critical about communities, about their neighboring communities. And I used to think, somewhat with a sense of humor, that it all tied itself back to old football rivalries.
I used to get a lot of negative feedback from some of the people that lived out of town, and so much of it was so untrue.
I wish that everyone, from the administration of Windsor down to the small, the people who don't really participate at all, were more interested in more what's happening and try and actually work toward fixing this place, because I mean there are some problems.
The projects that have been done are not interconnected. They don't all make what appears to be a big picture.
I think anything that opens up a dialogue where everyone is looking in the same direction at the same goal and then can work in a civil manner to achieve that goal is optimum.
Sitting right here in front of this memorial, I'm looking around and says, I can remember when we had 3 drugstores, a shoe store over there, several restaurants, several service stations. But we know we're never going to see those days again.
The town has, since the mid-1980s, been struggling with or largely turning its back on the problems of the area where its historic industry was conducted. The Cone Blanchard facility and the so-called Goodyear facility have been largely empty, and the area has become overgrown and just someplace that folks really don't want to be.
Windsor has changed a great deal since the mid-70s, particularly into the 80s, when we really fell on hard times with our manufacturing capacities. And I think that the town was and kids in the town were very used to being able to go through school and they'd have a job. Goodyear or Cone Blanchard were here for them, and there was a lot of security and good paying jobs for most of the graduates of Windsor High School. That's not the case today.
After I graduate from high school, I don't think I'd stay. Mainly because, as I said, there isn't a whole lot here for, as far as interesting things to do.
We need to have places for kids to be able to live that are nice, not just living down street, not just, then they have to be nice apartments. They just can't be slap them up or fix them up and then forget they're there. They have to be nice apartments. They have to be affordable.
There's really not much because there's not enough business in the area to warrant them to stay, because if they want to grow up and they want to give the best to their children, and the best to children in today's world is money. And there's not any high-paying jobs in this area. I mean, it's just impossible to say, well, I'm going to live in Windsor and I'm going to make $80,000 a year. You can't do it.
And I think that that's one of the reasons why so many youth leave, is that you may be able to find a job in the area, but then what? Housing is difficult. Affordable housing anywhere in a 50-mile radius of this area is very hard to find. And then put that on that the jobs that you're apt to find if you don't have a degree are not, they're going to be close to minimum wage, so you're struggling. And most young people will probably be leaving for an urban environment or the service or an educational opportunity and then drift away.
I have a connection to this place, but I think opportunity lies elsewhere.
The question of young people and whether they stay in Windsor or leave Windsor, or whether they leave and come back, it's a tough question, and I think it varies a lot kid to kid. There are some of the kids here in town that I feel like would benefit from getting away from town.
What I dislike about Windsor, it's kind of boring. There's not much to do here. Basically, if it's Friday or Saturday and you've got nothing to do, mostly the only thing is hang around your house, get a car, or bum around on the street corners, and that's no fun.
It's not too good to come through a town and see teenagers standing on the street corner littering the streets, and they do that.
I think the kids got a bad reputation, and unjustifiably so. I think that there's probably a small handful of bad apples that make everybody look bad, but I think that the majority of kids are good, and they just want more opportunities to do things and enjoy things and just be kids.
I think that in order to keep kids here, I mean people our age and under, there's also the fact that we're not very well represented in the town.
During the past 25 years, Windsor was hit hard by economic decline. The loss of employment had devastating effects. Townsfolk left to find better opportunities elsewhere. Real estate values dropped, and businesses, which depended on the prosperity and affluence of the townspeople, closed their doors when no one could afford to sustain them. The town's economic growth suffered as businesses grew in New Hampshire and attracted buyers across the river. Years of uncertainty followed. Elder care developed into a prominent issue when it became clear that not enough resources were available for the town's senior citizens. Community programs were needed for the town's youth, and social assistance was needed to help many families whose who suffered from unemployment and other problems. Roads, buildings, and town facilities and services needed maintenance and repair. The monies from the town's tax base, which had been so crucial to supporting the town's economy, diminished, and citizens were faced with ever-increasing property taxes, which many could not pay. Funding was in critical short supply, and the town needed to find ways with which to acquire more money. But how? What was Windsor to become? What did the future hold? What did the citizens of Windsor really want? And what were they prepared to do to get what they wanted? These were a few of the many questions being asked and needing answers.
You know, one of the extraordinary things about Windsor is that in some ways, time passed it by.
In a funny way, the fact that it had so many bad years mean that people couldn't knock down or otherwise ruin beautiful buildings.
And when I walk around town, and I probably walk a lot more of the sort of back alleys and weird parts of town than a lot of people do, you can see that the town had a lot of prosperity in its history. Just the detailing on the building, the quality of the construction of a lot of the buildings.
Our historic buildings enable us to tell a story of how a community evolves and to preserve elements of the past by the reuse of historic buildings. We're able to read the history of a community and pass that history on to future generations in a very tangible and useful way.
I mean, Windsor has a very rich history that we all should remember and not neglect to respect and honor.
It seems to me that there are many, many tourists who will come to this town for the history. We really do have a rich history. I think we really want to attract those kinds of tourists.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We should bring people in, show them what we have in this town.
If we can get people to come into Windsor by a way of new housing, in particular, which is the major need in the Upper Valley, it will spawn retail business and other small businesses, which will create jobs and help build the tax base.
We have to diversify, and you can't count on just one thing like the machine tool industry.
So what we need to do is we need to attract the very special items, the special people who know that it's no longer location, location, location.
But we're starting to recognize things that I've sort of been saying for a while, is that our industrial zone, it's underutilized as an industrial zone, and perhaps if we were to relook at that zone, that there are other opportunities for it.
In a 20-year future for Windsor, I can see the potential for a really great small town place to live. I think if the efforts that have been started can really come to fruition and be completed, I think you could have a very nice place to live, a good place to just walk around and enjoy the town. I'd like to see the shops all come together. And I think the potential is there, the possibility is there, and I think a lot of what seems like major problems and issues right now can resolve themselves just by continuing a lot of the directions that have already been started.
I want Windsor to become a place where people can walk down the streets and be impressed with the town. I want it to be a place where people are open and welcoming. I want it to be a place where you don't need to lock your doors. I want it to be a place where opportunity can be met.
As a community pulls together to help itself, to move forward in initiatives around the town. There's the indomitable spirit in Windsor of we're doing okay and we'll continue to do well.
We need to think of our assets, not our liabilities, and we need to build on those assets and make this a community that is thriving again.
Let's be leaders. Let's be the leaders of this area. Let's be the leadership that they need so that when they come here, they see something that they can copy.
Windsorites know that the days of the blue-collar town are long gone, and difficult choices must be made in deciding what the future will be. Change is inevitable in today's economic and social climate, and it is the kind of change needed that Vermont and Windsor must determine. With the help of many state and local agencies, Windsor began the long road back to security and growth. The building of the new State Street School and Windsor Junior Senior High School in 1996 showed that Windsor was moving and gaining ground. The town's hospital, Mount Ascutney Hospital and Health Center, initiated community health programs to improve the quality of life for all Windsor citizens, young and old, and these programs have seen much success. New elder care residences were built to accommodate the town's senior citizens, and a new recreation department was created to offer a variety of programs and activities for Windsor families. Windsor has not forgotten its heritage and has made great efforts to increase awareness of its important history by taking positive action in preserving and restoring many of the town's historical buildings. Heritage tourism, once a distant concept, is now used as an important resource to help the town promote its assets and acquire new funding. The annual Heritage Days Festival has brought more than 60,000 visitors and tourists to Windsor over the past 4 years. The town has, to date, received more than $3 million in grant funding to assist in creating new businesses, developing the old industrial parks of Goodyear and Cone Blanchard, and redesigning and improving the appearance of Main Street in order to bring economic growth back to the center of town. What Windsor will finally become and how secure and stable the town will be is yet to be seen. The processes currently in motion will take years to complete. However, the indomitable and hard-working spirit that was evident in the early pioneers still exists in the people of Windsor.